Welcome back, and thank you for being a part of Matthew's stories. Your support means the world to us. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more captivating tales. Now, let's dive into today's story. I thought I had a good marriage with my wife, Melanie. We've been married for 5 years, and up until a couple of months ago, I thought we were happy. Our sex life was solid. We'd try new things, and she always seemed satisfied. She's gorgeous, driven, and the life of every party. People would always tell me how lucky I was to have her, and I believed it. Then one night, out of nowhere, Melanie dropped a bomb on me over dinner. "What do you think about open relationships?" she asked, casually sipping her wine like she wasn't detonating our marriage. I nearly choked on my steak. "What?" "You know," she said, setting her glass down, "where we can explore other people but still stay committed to each other. I've been reading about it, and a lot of couples say it makes their bond stronger." My first instinct was to laugh it off, thinking she couldn't be serious. But she was. She had a whole pitch prepared about how monogamy was outdated and how giving each other freedom would only bring us closer. I asked her straight up if she'd already cheated on me. She looked genuinely offended and said, "Of course not. I never do that. I just think we're secure enough to try something new." I was skeptical, to say the least, but Melanie has a way of twisting conversations to her advantage. She said she wanted both of us to be happy, that it wasn't about wanting anyone else. It was about deepening our connection. She was throwing around words like empowerment and equality, making it sound like she was doing me a favor. I told her I needed time to think, but she kept pushing. Every day, there were articles she'd accidentally leave open on her laptop or stories about friends of friends who had tried it and loved it. She made it seem like I was the only thing standing in the way of our marriage evolving. Finally, after weeks of relentless pressure, I caved. I told her we could try it on one condition. We had to set boundaries and talk about everything. She agreed, acting like I'd just handed her the world. At first, it seemed fine. Neither of us did anything right away. Melanie even joked, "See? This isn't so scary." I figured it might be a phase, something she'd lose interest in once she realized how complicated it could be. But then things started to change. Melanie suddenly became obsessed with her appearance, new clothes, extra time at the gym, and a constant need to work late. When I asked her about it, she laughed it off, saying, "Isn't this what you wanted? For me to feel confident and sexy?" But that wasn't the worst part. One night, as we were watching a movie, her phone buzzed. I glanced over and saw a preview of the message. "Can't stop thinking about last night. Same time tomorrow." She noticed me looking and snatched the phone away. "It's just work stuff," she said, smiling nervously. "You know how demanding my boss is." Something didn't sit right with me, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I told myself I was being paranoid, that she wouldn't lie to me after everything we'd agreed on. But deep down, I knew something was off. The work excuse quickly became Melanie's favorite line. She was suddenly working late all the time, often texting during dinner and leaving the room to take calls. Whenever I asked about it, she brushed me off with, "You know how demanding my boss is," or "It's just deadlines, Jake. Chill." At first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. She's always been ambitious, and I figured maybe she was just pushing herself to impress her boss, Greg, 42M. I'd met Greg once at her office party. Your typical slick corporate guy, always cracking jokes and pretending to be everyone's best friend. He was married, so I didn't think twice about him back then. But the signs kept piling up. Melanie was dressing differently. Tight pencil skirts, low-cut blouses, and heels so high I wondered how she could walk in them. She claimed it was power dressing, but it felt more like she was auditioning for a role I wasn't cast in. Then there was the night she came home smelling like cologne, and it wasn't mine. "Long day?" I asked, eyeing her as she breezed into the kitchen to pour herself a drink. "Exhausting," she said, taking a sip of wine. "Greg dragged me into another last-minute meeting. He owes me a vacation after this week." I muttered, not buying it for a second. "Why are you looking at me like that?" she snapped, her tone defensive. "Like what?" "Like you don't believe me." I shrugged. "Maybe because you smell like someone else's cologne." Her face froze for a split second before she rolled her eyes. "God, Jake, are you serious?" Greg hugged me goodbye. His cologne must have rubbed off. "You're being ridiculous." I let it slide that night, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. A week later, I decided to test her. I asked if she wanted to have dinner together, just the two of us. We could try that new sushi place you've been talking about, I said. She hesitated, glancing at her phone. I can't tonight. Greg wants me to help finalize a big presentation. I smiled, keeping my voice calm. No problem. Maybe tomorrow. As soon as she left, I called one of my buddies who lived near her office. Can you do me a favor and see if Melanie's car is actually at work tonight? It wasn't. Instead, it was parked outside a high-end steakhouse across town. My buddy sent me a photo, Melanie, stepping out of her car, laughing as Greg held the door open for her. My chest tightened, anger and humiliation bubbling up. She convinced me to agree to this open relationship under the guise of strengthening our marriage. And now she was sneaking off with her boss? When she got home later that night, I played dumb. How was the presentation? Stressful, she said, kicking off her heels. Greg's a perfectionist, but we pulled it off. I clenched my jaw, forcing a smile. That's great. I'm proud of you. She kissed me on the cheek, muttering something about needing a shower before bed. I watched her walk away, my blood boiling. She thought she was clever, thought she had me fooled, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Melanie's work dinners and late-night meetings became more frequent after that steakhouse incident. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore, though she still fed me the same tired excuses. Jake, I'm under so much pressure right now, she'd say, sighing dramatically. Greg is counting on me, and I can't let him down. I started to notice smaller, more telling details. Her phone, which she used to leave lying around the house, was now glued to her hand or tucked in her purse. She was constantly giggling at texts, tilting the screen away whenever I glanced over. If I questioned her, she'd brush it off with, "It's just Megan. You know how chatty she is." Megan, her supposed best friend, had become her go-to scapegoat. But when I ran into Megan at the grocery store one day, she looked genuinely confused when I mentioned Melanie's recent hangouts. "She hasn't been out with me in weeks," Megan said, frowning. "We've both been so busy." I nodded, my suspicions hardening into certainty. "Yeah, busy. That sounds like Melanie." I kept my cool, but inside I was seething. It wasn't just Greg. Melanie was lying about everything. The final straw came one Saturday when she told me she had a yoga retreat with some coworkers. "It's a full-day thing," she said, slipping into her tightest leggings and sports bra. "I'll probably be home late, so don't wait up." I smiled, playing the part of the supportive husband. "Have fun. Text me if you need anything." As soon as she left, I called Eddie, a co-worker who moonlighted as a tech wizard. "I need a favor," I said. "Can you track a phone if I give you the number?" Eddie chuckled. "That's shady as hell, man. What's going on?" "Let's just say I need confirmation of something I already know." He didn't ask questions, and within an hour, I had Melanie's location pinned on my phone. She wasn't at a yoga studio. She wasn't even in town. She was at a luxury resort about an hour away. My hands trembled as I drove there, my mind racing with possibilities. When I pulled into the parking lot, her car was parked right out front. I scanned the lobby, my heart pounding, but there was no sign of her. I headed toward the restaurant, where I spotted her instantly. She was sitting in a corner booth, leaning in close to a man I didn't recognize. He was younger than Greg, maybe mid-30s, and clearly smitten with her. They were laughing, their hands brushing as they shared a bottle of wine. I snapped a photo from behind a potted plant, my stomach twisting with rage and disgust. She wasn't just sleeping with Greg. She was juggling multiple men, using her so-called open relationship as a free pass to cheat. I waited in the lobby until she left the restaurant, watching as she and the mystery man disappeared into one of the elevators. My chest tightened as the reality of it all sank in. Melanie had no intention of strengthening our bond. She manipulated me into agreeing to this setup, so she could have her cake and eat it too. When I got home, I poured myself a drink and sat in the dark, staring at the photo I'd taken. She thought she was untouchable, that I was too naive or too weak to fight back. But I wasn't. She wanted an open relationship? Fine. It was time to show her what that really looked like. After that night at the resort, my anger crystallized into something more dangerous: determination. Melanie had played me for a fool, but but she didn't realize I'd caught on. She thought she was untouchable, but I was about to show her just how wrong she was. If she wanted an open relationship, I'd give her one, but this time I was going to set the rules. The next morning, I made breakfast like nothing was wrong. Melanie came downstairs, hair still damp from her shower, looking radiant and completely unbothered. "You're in a good mood," she said, raising an eyebrow as I set a plate of eggs and bacon in front of her. "Why wouldn't I be?" I replied, smiling. "Things feel good lately." She seemed surprised but pleased. "See? I told you this arrangement would work for us." "Oh, I've been thinking about that," I said, keeping my tone light. "Maybe you were right. Maybe exploring other people does make things better." Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. "Really?" I nodded, leaning casually against the counter. "Yeah, I mean, you've been having fun, right? Why shouldn't I?" For a split second, panic flickered across her face, but she quickly covered it with a smile. "Of course. That's the whole point, Jake, to explore together." "Exactly," I said, my smile widening. "Which is why I think I'm going to see where things go with someone." Her smile faltered. "Who?" I shrugged. "Oh, no one yet. But I've been talking to people. Testing the waters, you know?" Her fork clattered onto her plate. "Jake, don't you think we should discuss this first? I mean, it's important to set boundaries." "Oh, absolutely," I said, cutting her off. "We'll talk about it more tonight. I've got a lot of ideas." She nodded stiffly, her appetite suddenly gone. That evening, I set my plan into motion. I reached out to Melanie's best friend, Kara, 29F, a woman I'd known since Melanie and I started dating. Kara was stunning, dark hair, sharp wit, and a mischievous streak that always kept things interesting. I knew she and Melanie had been on the outs lately, and I had a feeling she wouldn't hesitate to help me out. I sent her a simple message. "Hey, can we talk? I need your advice about something personal." Kara replied almost instantly. "Of course. What's up?" I told her everything. Melanie's push for an open relationship, her lies, the men she was seeing behind my back. To my surprise, Kara wasn't shocked. "I've suspected something for a while," she admitted. "She's been acting weird around me too, like she's hiding something. Honestly, I'm not even surprised she dragged you into this mess." I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, well, I'm done playing by her rules. I want to turn the tables, and I think you're the perfect person to help me." Kara raised an eyebrow. "What exactly are you proposing?" I laid out my plan, and as I spoke, a sly smile spread across her face. "You're evil," she said, her eyes gleaming. "I love it. I'm in." The next few days were a blur of planning. I made sure Melanie was distracted, letting her think I was busy exploring while she carried on with her lies. Meanwhile, Kara and I met up in secret, working out every detail of what would become the ultimate revenge. By the end of the week, everything was in place. Melanie thought she was in control, but she had no idea the trap she was walking into. Kara and I knew we needed to take things slow to make the plan work. If Melanie caught on too soon, the whole thing would fall apart. Fortunately, Melanie was so wrapped up in her arrangement with Greg and her other boy toys that she didn't notice what was happening right under her nose. The first step was planting the seeds of doubt. I started mentioning Kara casually in conversation. "Ran into Kara today," I said one evening while Melanie scrolled through her phone. She barely looked up. "Oh, how's she doing?" "Good," I replied. "She said we should all get together soon. Catch up." Melanie shrugged. "Sure, whatever." She didn't care. Not yet. The second step was building tension. Kara and I started texting more frequently, making sure to leave breadcrumbs that Melanie could find if she bothered to look. Flirty messages like, "You always know how to make me laugh," or "Tonight was fun. Can't wait to do it again." I even left my phone on the counter one night, unlocked, with one of Kara's texts visible on the screen. Melanie noticed, her eyes narrowing as she read the preview. "Who's that?" she asked, trying to sound nonchalant. "Oh, just Kara," I said casually. "We've been talking a lot lately. She's really easy to open up to, you know." Her jaw tightened, but she forced a smile. "That's nice." I could see the wheels turning in her head. She didn't say anything else, but I knew she was starting to wonder. The final step was the setup. Kara and I planned a private meeting at her apartment, making sure Melanie would find out. I left the house that evening, casually mentioning I had plans. Just grabbing drinks with someone, I said, throwing on a jacket. Who? Melanie asked, her tone sharper than usual. I shrugged. Gotta. She invited me over to catch up. Her face darkened. You're spending a lot of time with her lately. She's fun to be around, I said, smirking as I walked out the door. At Kara's apartment, we went over the final details. She had the camera set up perfectly, positioned to capture the exact moment we'd need. We poured ourselves a couple of drinks, laughing about how oblivious Melanie had been up to this point. She's going to lose it, Kara said, shaking her head. I almost feel bad. Almost. She deserves it, I replied. And I'm ready to finish this. I pulled out my phone and sent Melanie a text. We need to talk. Come over to Kara's place. She replied instantly. Why the hell are you at Kara's? What's going on? I didn't respond. Let her stew, I thought, the satisfaction building. Kara and I settled onto the couch, waiting for the inevitable storm. The moment Melanie burst through the door, everything would come to light. Melanie arrived at Kara's apartment faster than I expected. I barely had time to sit back on the couch before the sound of frantic pounding echoed through the apartment. Kara smirked, taking a sip of her wine as I stood, and made my way to the door. Jake! Melanie's voice was muffled but frantic. Open the damn door. I glanced at Kara. Showtime. Opening the door, I found Melanie standing there, her face a mixture of rage and confusion. She pushed past me, her eyes darting around the room until they landed on Kara, who was lounging on the couch like she didn't have a care in the world. What the hell is going on? Melanie demanded, glaring at both of us. What do you mean? I asked calmly, shutting the door behind her. You know damn well what I mean, she shouted, pointing at Kara. Why are you here? Together? I walked over to the couch and sat beside Kara, casually draping an arm over the backrest. We've been spending a lot of time together, I said, my tone deliberately nonchalant. Just exploring our connection. Isn't that what you wanted? Her eyes widened, her face flushing with anger. You gotta be kidding me. Gotta? My best friend? Are you serious, Jake? I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. Dead serious. Why shouldn't I? You want an open relationship, right? You said it would strengthen our bond. She sputtered, clearly struggling to find a response. That's different. How? I shot back, my voice rising. How is this different from you sneaking around with Greg? Or the guy from the resort? Or whoever the hell else you've been seeing behind my back? Her face went pale. You don't know what you're talking about, she said weakly. Oh, but I do, I said, standing and pulling out my phone. I've got pictures, Melanie. Texts. GPS logs. I've been watching you for weeks. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? Kara chimed in then, her voice dripping with sarcasm. She's been real busy, hasn't she? Must be exhausting keeping all those lies straight. Shut up, Melanie snapped, turning on her. You're supposed to be my friend. I was, Kara said, crossing her arms. Until I realized what a lying, manipulative bitch you are. Jake deserves better, and I'm more than happy to help him see that. Melanie's jaw dropped, her fury spilling over. You're disgusting. Both of you. How could you do this to me? I couldn't help but laugh, the sound bitter and sharp. Do this to you? You've got some nerve, Melanie. You've been screwing your boss and God knows how many other guys while pretending this was all about strengthening our bond. I didn't mean, she started, but I cut her off. Save it, I said coldly. Because we're not done yet. I pulled out my phone and opened the live streaming app Kara and I had set up earlier. With a single tap, the screen lit up, broadcasting to a private group I'd created, friends, family, and even a few of Melanie's coworkers. What are you doing? Melanie asked, her voice panicked. Making sure everyone knows the truth, I said. You want an open relationship, Melanie? Well, congratulations. Now everyone gets to see just how open you've been. The live stream started with Melanie's confused and furious face front and center. Her eyes darted to the phone in my hand, realizing too late what was happening. Turn that off, she shrieked, lunging toward me. I stepped back, keeping the camera steady. No, Melanie. This is the transparency you always talked about, isn't it? Let's let everyone see the real you. Jake, stop, she screamed, her voice cracking. This isn't funny. No, it's not funny, I said coldly. It's humiliating, manipulative, and downright disgusting. And I've had enough of it. I turned to Kara, who was smirking in the background. Want to chime in? Kara didn't hesitate. She leaned into the camera with an exaggerated shrug. Hi everyone, I'm Kara, Melanie's best friend. Fun fact. While she's been screwing her boss and half the city, she's been lying to her sweet husband here about how it's all for their bond. Classy, right? Melanie's face turned beet red as she spun on Kara. You backstabbing bitch. Gotta left? Anfast. Says the woman who lied to my face for years while she was busy playing games behind Jake's back. Pot. Meat kettle. The comments started rolling, and almost immediately, my phone buzzed in my hand as viewers chimed in. Is this real? Wait, Melanie cheated? Oh my God. Kara's savage. Melanie, how could you do this? Melanie noticed the comments too. Her eyes widened in horror as she realized who was watching. You didn't, she whispered, her voice trembling. Who's seeing this? I smirked. Oh, just a few friends and family. Maybe Greg's wife. You know, the people who deserve to know the truth. Her panic turned to rage, and she lunged for my phone again. You bastard. You had no right. I sidestepped her easily, holding the phone high. No right? Melanie, you've been lying to me for months. You convinced me to open our marriage just so you could cheat guilt-free. Don't talk to me about rights. The comments kept pouring in, and Melanie finally seemed to understand the full scope of what was happening. Her bravado crumbled, and she started pleading. Jake, please, she said, tears streaming down her face. I made a mistake, okay? I was confused. I didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed bitterly. Confused? That's what you're going with? You weren't confused when you made dinner plans with Greg, or when you went to that resort with Mystery Man number 2, or when you decided screwing me over was more important than our marriage. Her sobs grew louder, but I didn't stop. You don't get to play the victim here, Melanie. You did this to yourself. Kara took the opportunity to twist the knife further. You know, Mel, you've always been good at playing the perfect wife, she said, crossing her arms. Too bad everyone's seeing what you're really like now. How's that working out for you? Melanie turned on her again, her voice trembling with fury. You're just jealous. You've always been jealous of me. Cara es norte. Jealous? Of what? Your ability to ruin everything you touch. Hard pass. The comments had taken a life of their own now. Melanie, what the fuck? Kara's a queen. Jake, you deserve better, man. Greg's wife is definitely watching this. Melanie buried her face in her hands, her sobs shaking her whole body. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of satisfaction. She had manipulated me, lied to me, and tried to make me feel like the bad guy. But now, she was facing the truth, publicly, unapologetically, and with no way out. I ended the stream with a single sentence. This is what happens when you push someone too far. After I ended the live stream, the room fell into an eerie silence. Melanie stood frozen, her tear-streaked face a mix of rage and humiliation. I could see her mind racing, trying to piece together how her perfectly constructed facade had shattered in just a few minutes. Kara, ever the instigator, broke the silence with a slow clap. Well, that was cathartic, she said, leaning back on the couch with a smug grin. Get out, Melanie hissed, her voice low but venomous. Both of you, get out of here. Actually, you should go, I said calmly. Kara and I have plans, and I'm not in the mood to host you anymore. Her jaw dropped. Are you serious right now? As a heart attack, I replied. Pack a bag and leave. You can stay with Greg, or whoever's next on your rotation. Melanie's rage boiled over, and she slammed her fists against the coffee table. You're insane, Jake. You just destroyed our marriage in front of everyone. How am I supposed to come back from this? That's the point, I said coldly. There is no coming back. You destroyed our marriage the moment you started lying to me, screwing around, and treating me like an idiot. All I did was make sure everyone else knew the truth. She stared at me, her anger giving way to desperation. Jake, please, she whispered. I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking straight, but I love you. We can fix this. I shook my head, my voice steady. You don't love me, Melanie. You love control. You love being the center of attention, having everyone think you're perfect. But you don't love me, or anyone else, for that matter. Her shoulders sagged, and for a moment, I thought she might actually leave without a fight. But then she turned to Kara, her eyes blazing. "You're pathetic," she spat. "You're just doing this because you've always wanted what I have." Kara laughed, standing to her full height. "Oh, sweetheart, I don't want anything of yours. Especially not your lying, cheating baggage. I'm just here to help Jake show you what karma looks like." "You bitch!" Melanie lunged at her, but I stepped between them, holding my hands up. "That's enough," I said firmly. "Melanie, leave now, or I'll call the police. Your choice." She looked at me, then at Kara, then back at me, her expression a twisted mix of hatred and despair. "You're going to regret this," she said through gritted teeth. "Doubt it," I replied, crossing my arms. With one last glare, she stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door behind her. The sound of her footsteps echoed down the hall until they disappeared entirely. After she was gone, Kara and I collapsed on the couch, the tension in the room finally breaking. "Well, that was dramatic," Kara said, letting out a long breath. "Yeah," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. "I think I need a drink." She laughed, grabbing 2 glasses and a bottle of whiskey from the kitchen. "You earned it." As we sipped our drinks, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. Melanie's web of lies had finally unraveled, and while it wasn't pretty, it was over. "I'm proud of you," Kara said after a while. "It takes guts to stand up to someone like her." I shrugged. I just got tired of being her doormat. She thought she could walk all over me, but not anymore. Kara smiled, raising her glass. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. The days after the live-stream confrontation were nothing short of chaotic. Melanie's name was suddenly on everyone's lips. The video had spread faster than I anticipated. Friends, co-workers, even casual acquaintances were texting me about it. Some messages were supportive, others just nosy, but the sentiment was clear. Melanie had been exposed, and there was no coming back from it. The first blow came at work. Melanie's boss, Greg, was apparently one of the many people who'd seen the live stream. Word spread quickly around her office, and Greg's wife caught wind of it too. She showed up at their workplace the next day, dragging Greg out of a meeting to confront him in the parking lot. Eddie called me later with the details. "Dude," Greg's wife went nuclear. She was screaming about divorce lawyers and threatening to call HR. "He's toast." "Good," I said, a grim smile tugging at my lips. "He deserves it." Melanie wasn't spared either. Her co-workers, once friendly and supportive, now avoided her like the plague. She called me one night, her voice shaking with desperation. "Jake, please," she said. "I need your help. I'm going to lose my job because of this. People are saying awful things about me. I can't do this alone." "You should have thought about that before you lied to me," I replied coldly. "This isn't my problem anymore, Melanie. Deal with it yourself." Then there was the social fallout. Melanie's friends, though she hadn't alienated with her lies, started distancing themselves as well. Megan, her supposed best friend, sent me a message a few days later. "Hey Jake, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what you've been through. I had no idea Melanie was doing all of that. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." I didn't reply. I wasn't interested in sympathy or hollow apologies from people who'd ignored the signs for so long. Meanwhile, Kara and I kept in touch. We didn't rush into anything romantic. Our partnership had been built on revenge, not love. But there was an undeniable connection between us. She was honest, sharp, and unapologetically loyal, qualities I hadn't realized I'd been missing. One evening, she invited me over for dinner. As we shared a bottle of wine and laughed about old memories, she looked at me with a mix of curiosity and admiration. "So, what's next for you?" she asked. "Good question," I said, swirling the wine in my glass. "I guess I need to figure out who I am without her. It's been a long time since I've done anything just for me." "Well," she said, raising her glass, "here's to finding yourself. And if you need a partner in crime, you know where to find me." I smiled, clinking my glass against hers. "I might just take you up on that." As for Melanie, I heard through the grapevine that she'd moved into a tiny apartment on the other side of town. Her attempts to salvage her reputation were laughable at best. Every time she tried to tell her side of the story, someone would pull up the video as proof of her lies. She called me one last time, her voice small and broken. "Jake, I don't know what to do. I've lost everything. Please, can we just talk?" "No," I said firmly. "You've taken enough from me, Melanie. It's time for you to figure things out on your own." She hung up, and I deleted her number. After cutting Melanie out of my life for good, I felt an unfamiliar sense of peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells or questioning my worth. The weight of her manipulation, her lies, and her betrayal was gone. All that remained was me, and I finally felt free to start over. The video of the live stream continued to circulate, but I stopped paying attention to the comments and gossip. I didn't need validation from strangers. I'd gotten what I wanted: closure and justice. Melanie's reputation was in tatters, Greg's marriage was reportedly over, and I was no longer shackled by her web of deceit. Kara remained a constant in my life, though we took things slow. She was refreshingly honest, always pushing me to think about what I wanted instead of dwelling on the past. One night, as we sat on her balcony sharing a pizza, she leaned over and nudged me with her elbow. "You know," she said, smirking, "you're kind of a badass now." I laughed, shaking my head. "Yeah, I'm sure live streaming your personal drama is the textbook definition of badass." "Hey," she said, her tone serious now. "You stood up for yourself. Not everyone can say that. Melanie thought she had you figured out, but you flipped the script. That's badass." I didn't respond right away, but her words stuck with me. She was right. I had let Melanie control the narrative for too long. Taking back that control, exposing her for what she truly was, had been empowering. In the weeks that followed, I began to rebuild. I threw myself into work, took up boxing at a local gym, and started reconnecting with old friends. The house, once a reminder of everything I'd lost, became a blank canvas. I painted the walls, replaced the furniture, and filled the space with things that made me happy. Kara and I grew closer, though we kept our relationship private. There was no rush, no pressure, just two people enjoying each other's company. She challenged me in ways Melanie never had, pushing me to be better without tearing me down. One evening, as we walked through the park, Kara turned to me with a mischievous grin. "So, if you could tell Melanie one thing now, what would it be?" I thought about it for a moment, then smiled. "Thank you." Her eyes widened in surprise. "Seriously?" "Yeah," I said, nodding. "She taught me a lot about what I don't want, about what I deserve, and about who I am. It sucked, but it made me stronger. So, yeah, thank you, Melanie. You showed me exactly what I'm not willing to settle for." Kara laughed, looping her arm through mine. "You're a better person than me." "Not better," I said, grinning. "Just finally free." Melanie faded into the background of my life, her name mentioned only in whispers among those who had seen the live stream. As for me, I was done looking back. The open relationship trap she'd set for me had backfired spectacularly, and I walked away with my dignity and a new lease on life intact. This was my fresh start, and I wasn't going to waste it.